They say Christmas exposes the truth, the light finds every shadow. Last year I believed I was surrounded by family, success and love. By Christmas Eve I was standing alone in the snow, holding the ashes of everything I'd built. But the story didn't end there. It began there. Chicago in December doesn't glitter the way it does in movies. It breathes, slow clouds of steam rising from the grates, headlights blurring through frost, the lake wind slicing down Michigan Avenue. For most people that wind carried Christmas carols and shopping lists. For me it carried warnings I refused to hear. My name is Ethan Cole. At 49 I was the man people called lucky. I'd built Cole and Reiner Associates, one of Chicago's sharpest marketing firms, from a single desk in a borrowed co-working space. 15 years later we occupied 2 full floors of glass and light overlooking the river. Inside those walls, December always meant peppermint lattes, Secret Santa chaos, and an office tree so tall we had to anchor it to the ceiling with fishing wire. I was proud of that tree. It stood like proof that hard work could create warmth. That morning, the lobby smelled of cinnamon and ambition. Assistants hustled to finish the final campaign before break. Everyone wore sweaters. Everyone was smiling. Everyone except the 2 people I trusted most. Rachel, my wife of 16 years, elegant, sharp, always 3 steps ahead, sat in my office window arranging calla lilies into a vase. The stems trembled slightly in her hands. And Liam Reiner, my protege, the partner I'd mentored from his first internship, hovered near the doorway scrolling through his phone, pretending not to listen. Big year, I said, hanging my coat. Our revenue's up 30%. You 2 should take a vacation after the holidays. Somewhere warm. Rachel smiled without looking at me. Maybe we will. Something in her tone chilled the room more than the wind outside. Liam's phone chimed. He glanced at her, not at me, and they shared the kind of look you only notice when it's already too late. I told myself I imagined it. You don't spend 20 years building trust only to suspect treason over eye contact. Still, I watched their reflections in the glass while I adjusted the office lights. The city below glowed with strings of gold, every skyscraper blinking like a promise. I couldn't see the knife under the ribbon yet. 5 years earlier, same office. Rachel brought in cocoa for the staff and kissed me on the cheek beneath the mistletoe. Liam was 27 then, idealistic and grateful. He called me mentor, sometimes sir, like respect wasn't old-fashioned yet. We spent that night wrapping bonus envelopes together, laughing over client disasters, planning to expand. Rachel said, someday we'll tell our kids how this all started at Christmas. I believed her. Now, December 23rd. The final workday before Christmas Eve. I returned from a client lunch to find the office quieter than usual. Half the staff had left early for family flights. The others whispered near the elevators. On my desk sat a single red envelope embossed with the company seal. Inside a notice. Extraordinary shareholder meeting, 5 p.m. today. That was odd. Only 2 shareholders existed, Liam Reiner and me. I walked into the conference room at 5 sharp. Snow swirled against the glass like confetti that had forgotten it was supposed to celebrate something. Liam was already there, perfectly composed in his navy suit. A notary sat beside him, briefcase open, paperwork arranged with surgical precision. Rachel stood behind the chairs, her arms folded, wearing the same white coat she'd worn the night we first signed our partnership papers. Only this time she didn't smile. Ethan, Liam began, this is difficult, but we've decided to restructure the company. I laughed softly. We? Who's we? Rachel's voice cut through the air like a paper blade. The board voted this afternoon. There is no board, I said. There's me and him. There was you and him, Liam corrected. Rachel's purchased partial shares through the marital trust. That gives us majority control. The notary slid the document forward for my acknowledgement. I saw the signatures, Liam's bold, Rachel's delicate, intertwined like initials carved into a tombstone. My chair creaked as I sat down. You planned this? Rachel finally looked at me. Ethan, the company needs new energy. You've been stuck. We're just taking it forward. Forward, I repeated. By cutting me out 3 days before Christmas? Her eyes didn't flinch. Timing's never good for change. The notary stamped the final page. The sound was tiny, almost polite, but it echoed like a gunshot. Just like that, 15 years of my life became a legal formality. Liam reached for the papers. I'll make sure you're listed as founder emeritus. Out of respect. Respect. The same word every betrayer uses to decorate the coffin they hand you. I stood slowly. You 2 deserve each other. I meant it as an insult, but they took it as truth. When I left the building, snow was falling in perfect silence. The city lights blurred through the flakes like smeared paint. I walked until my feet went numb, past storefronts humming with carols and children pressing noses against toy displays. Everywhere I looked, people were giving, and all I could feel was what had been taken. That night, I went home to the condo overlooking the river. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, still half decorated, the ornaments waiting for Rachel to finish them. Her coat was gone. So were her clothes. Only a single envelope remained on the marble counter beside the cookie tin. Ethan, I've moved out. This isn't sudden, it's something we both knew was coming. Please don't make this ugly. You'll be compensated fairly. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. I poured whiskey into the snow globe tumbler she'd given me our first year together. The globe showed a little glass church. I shook it, watched the flakes spin, then slammed it down hard enough to crack the base. Outside, church bells rang for evening mass. Families hurried through the streets carrying gifts wrapped in silver paper. I stood at the window, staring at my reflection against the skyline. Behind me, the Christmas lights blinked, on, off, on, as if mocking my heartbeat. I went back the next morning. I told myself it was to gather my things, but really, it was to convince myself this wasn't real. The receptionist avoided my eyes. Security badges were already reprogrammed. My nameplate had vanished from the wall. In its place hung a wreath of white roses. When I stepped into what used to be my office, Liam's coat hung on my chair. His laptop blinked with new emails. The coffee mug on the desk said "World's Best Boss." What? I almost laughed. Almost. I packed the few things they hadn't claimed: Maria's picture frame, my father's fountain pen, the small wooden ornament shaped like a reindeer Rachel had carved for me on our first Christmas. As I turned to leave, Liam entered. He looked polished, practiced, already comfortable in his theft. "You shouldn't be here, Ethan," he said quietly. "It's time to let go." I studied with him. "I taught you everything you know." "I know," he said, and for a moment his voice almost trembled. "That's what makes this so hard." "No," I answered, "that's what makes it unforgivable." I walked past him without another word. The elevator doors closed, sealing the sound of laughter and clinking glasses as the staff prepared for their Christmas party. My company's party. I rode down in silence, the music overhead playing, "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." When I reached the lobby, I took off my company badge and dropped it into the donation bin labeled Toys for Tots. The irony tasted bitter. Outside, the wind howled down the streets, scattering bits of tinsel like shattered halos. For the first time in 15 years, I had nowhere to be on Christmas Eve. I walked until midnight, through neighborhoods glowing with warmth I could no longer touch. Behind each window flickered a different version of what I'd lost. Families laughing, glasses clinking, children setting out milk for Santa. When the snow finally stopped, I found myself standing outside St. Matthew's Cathedral. The bells tolled 12. Midnight Mass. Through the doors spilled the smell of pine and candle wax. I hesitated, then stepped inside. The choir sang Silent Night. Their voices rose into the vaulted dark like forgiveness trying to reach heaven. I sat in the last pew and closed my eyes. Everything I'd built, gone. Everyone I'd trusted, gone. But somewhere beneath the grief, something small and steady whispered, "They took your company, Ethan. Don't let them take your soul." That night, for the first time in months, I stopped shaking. Outside, the city slept under fresh snow, waiting for morning. Waiting for redemption I didn't yet believe in. The morning after Christmas, Chicago looked like a postcard someone had dropped in the gutter. The snow that seemed magical the night before had turned gray along the curbs. I watched it melt through my apartment window, coffee gone cold in my hands, wondering how a life that once sparkled could go silent so completely. For the first time in 15 years, there were no client calls, no messages, no plans. Just the hum of the radiator and the occasional siren echoing through the frost. Silence has weight. It presses down until even your heartbeat sounds like noise. I spent those first days wandering the city. The cafes where I used to meet clients now looked like museums of another man's life. At night, I'd walk by our old office tower, 27 stories of glass, and stare up at the lights still burning in the windows. Somewhere up there, Liam was sitting behind my desk. Somewhere up there, Rachel was hanging garlands around my conference table. I'd tell myself I didn't care. Then I'd stand there until the security guard asked if I was lost. Yes, I'd think. Completely. Rachel used to wake me at dawn, dragging me toward the tree with the excitement of a child. We'd open one gift each before breakfast. Hers always something thoughtful, mine always something practical. She'd laugh at my terrible wrapping and pour champagne into mismatched mugs. She'd say, "You work too hard, Ethan. One day you'll forget what you're working for." She was right. I had. By New Year's Eve, I stopped answering calls. The lawyers handled the divorce. They called it amicable, which is what adults say when they're too tired to fight. Half the savings went to her, half to taxes. The company was gone, the condo nearly sold, my reputation sliced into gossip for people who loved me when I was useful. Sometimes at night, I'd play the old answering machine messages from clients and staff, the cheerful "Merry Christmas, boss," left only a week earlier. It was like listening to ghosts who hadn't realized they'd died. I told myself revenge would only poison me further. But even forgiveness needs something to hold on to, and my hands were empty. It was the second week of January when I wandered back to St. Matthew's. The nativity scene out front was half buried in snow. Inside, the sanctuary was almost empty, just a few people kneeling, their breath visible in the cold air. I didn't pray. I just sat. A priest I'd never met nodded at me from the altar, the kind of nod that says, "You don't have to speak, I already know." When the choir practiced in the next room, their voices leaked through the doors, off-key, human, imperfect. Something about that imperfection comforted me more than all the polished success I'd lost. I stayed until closing. Outside, the wind tore at my coat, but for once it didn't feel like punishment. A week later, a courier delivered a padded envelope. No return address. Inside, a Christmas card. The handwriting was Rachel's. "Ethan, whatever you think, I never meant for it to end this way. Liam said the company couldn't survive unless you stepped aside. He promised it was temporary. Please believe that I loved you once. R." I read it twice, then folded it back into the envelope. Temporary. Love in the past tense. People write lies on expensive paper when they can't bear to speak them aloud. That night I burned the card over the kitchen sink. The ashes swirled up the vent like black snow. February came, cruel and gray. One morning, while waiting for the train, I ran into David Tran, the CEO of Vanguard Automotive, one of our largest former clients. He looked surprised to see me. "Ethan, haven't heard from you since the shakeup." "The shakeup," I repeated, as though it were a mild inconvenience. He frowned. "Cole and Reiner's gone corporate, huh? Doesn't feel the same without you." We talked until the next train arrived. He mentioned rumors, missed deadlines, inflated invoices, clients jumping ship. Liam's expansion wasn't going smoothly. When he boarded his train, David clapped my shoulder. "Let me know if you ever get back in the game," he said. Then the doors closed, leaving me on the platform with an idea flickering like a pilot light. That night I pulled the old hard drive from storage and scrolled through archives of campaigns I'd designed. The slogans, the visuals, the heartbeat of a company that had once meant everything. My name still sat on each file's metadata, proof that I had existed. I realized something. They'd taken the company, yes, but they hadn't taken me. All the instincts, the relationships, the creative fire, they were still mine. I spent the next week sketching logos on napkins, mapping plans on old receipts, the way I used to before success turned into management meetings. I didn't know what I was building yet, only that I was building again. By March, the snow began to melt. Puddles reflected the skyline like cracked mirrors. The city looked wounded but alive, and maybe that's why I started feeling the same. I rented a single desk in a shared workspace near the river. No name on the door, just a key and a view of the frozen water. When people asked what I did, I said, "Consulting," because I wasn't sure what else to call resurrection. Every day I'd arrive before dawn, brew burnt coffee, and draft proposals to clients who probably thought I'd vanished. Most ignored me. A few responded. One small manufacturer in Milwaukee took a chance. Then another. For the first time in months, I sent out invoices, not to pay lawyers but to earn. Each deposit felt like a heartbeat returning. By April, I could afford groceries that didn't come in cans. By May, I'd hired a freelancer to help with design work. By June, I had 3 clients, all from word of mouth. I didn't tell anyone my company's name, Arclight Media. It sounded like something born from darkness. But even as life returned, winter lingered inside me. Every billboard, every ad I passed reminded me of the empire that wore my name without my consent. Cole and Reiner Associates. Their logo twinkled on buses beside Christmas trees in July promotions. Bright, hollow, false. Sometimes I'd imagine Rachel seeing one of my new campaigns and not realizing it was mine. Part of me hoped she would. Part of me prayed she wouldn't. On a chilly October afternoon, David Tran called. He sounded irritated. "Ethan, I don't know what's going on over at Cole and Reiner, but your old protégé is missing deadlines left and right. Half the budget's unaccounted for." I kept my tone neutral. That doesn't sound like the Liam I knew. Oh, it's exactly like him, David said. Arrogant, distracted. Reminds me of you 10 years ago, before you learned humility. He laughed. I didn't. Then he said something that changed everything. We're considering pulling the account. Have you ever thought about handling our rebrand personally? There it was, the moment the universe handed me the first thread of justice. But this time I didn't pull it out of anger. I pulled it out of purpose. When Thanksgiving arrived, I stayed in the city. I roasted a small chicken instead of a turkey, poured one glass of wine, and watched the snow return. Across the street, lights blinked in other apartments, families gathering, laughter spilling through thin walls. I wasn't lonely this time. Just quiet. I raised my glass to the window and said aloud, to lose. And to whatever comes after. Outside, a child dragged a sled past the lamppost, his mittened hands bright red from the cold. His father followed, laughing, and for a moment I saw myself years ago, before greed, before betrayal. I felt something break open inside me, not bitterness, not pity, clarity. Forgiveness wasn't a gift to Rachel or Liam. It was oxygen for me. But forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. As the snow thickened, I turned back to my desk, opened my laptop, and began typing a proposal addressed to Vanguard Automotive. It began simply. To rebuild trust, start with truth. Winter returned to Chicago early that year. The air carried that familiar metallic bite, the kind that turns breath into smoke and sidewalks into mirrors. But this winter felt different. For the first time since the betrayal, I wasn't frozen. I was moving, quietly, deliberately, like the city beneath the snow that never really sleeps. By December, ArcLight Media had become more than a side project. It was a living, breathing thing. We had 3 permanent clients, a small creative team, and a rented studio with a brick wall that leaked warmth. It wasn't luxury, it was honest. Every inch of it was built with my own hands again. I didn't plaster my name on the door. I didn't need to. The work spoke louder than the ego ever could. Each morning, I'd brew coffee before dawn, stare out at the frozen river, and whisper to myself, let them keep the name. I'll rebuild the soul. In business, revenge isn't served cold, it's served calculatedly. And mine began with 3 quiet steps. Step 1, rebuild my network. Not the sharks or ladder climbers who'd applauded my fall, the loyal ones. The honest ones. The clients who valued integrity over champagne. Step 2, study my enemy's weaknesses. From public filings, trade journals, and the murmurs that float through agencies like smoke. It didn't take long to see the cracks. Cole and Reiner had expanded too fast. They were drowning in overhead, luxury offices, unnecessary hires, a fleet of company cars. No one needed. Liam had turned vision into vanity. And Rachel, she'd become his figurehead, his ornament at board dinners, the creative director, whose smile covered the numbers falling apart behind her. Step 3, wait. Patience is a cruel teacher, but the lessons last. It came unexpectedly one afternoon, when Vanguard Automotive signed ArcLight for a new digital campaign, the same account Liam had mismanaged. David Tran's email read simply, let's see what the original mind behind our success can do again. The word original landed like a benediction. That night, I stayed in the office long after my small team had gone home. I stared at the first mock-up glowing on my monitor, clean, simple, bold. It didn't scream. It whispered. And that whisper felt like reclaiming my own voice. When the campaign launched, sales rose 18% within 3 weeks. David called, laughing. Guess the old dog still knows how to hunt. I smiled. Maybe I just learned where to aim. The following week I saw her again. Rachel. It happened by accident, or maybe fate. I was in a downtown cafe waiting for a meeting, when her voice drifted from the TV above the counter. A morning news segment. Cole and Reiner's co-CEO Rachel Cole discusses their holiday expansion. There she was, poised, flawless, surrounded by wreaths and poinsettias. But her eyes told a different story. They darted, unfocused, carrying that exhaustion of someone performing peace while drowning in regret. When the interviewer asked about me, my amicable departure, her throat tightened. She said, Ethan and I simply had different visions. Different visions. The same phrase she'd used the night she walked out. But this time there was a flicker, a tremor beneath her voice. Regret. Real and raw. For the first time I didn't feel anger. I felt distant. She was part of an old chapter, one I no longer needed to reread. By mid-December, ArcLight had become something of a whisper in the industry, the ghost firm people couldn't trace but everyone wanted to hire. We never advertised. Our clients came through reputation and results. What made it work wasn't brilliance. It was honesty. I'd learned that truth, when used right, is the sharpest branding tool in the world. While Liam spent millions hosting galas and courting investors, I spent nights walking through soup kitchens and shelters, quietly sponsoring ad campaigns that gave those without voices a platform. ArcLight's motto became, "Illuminate what others overlook." The irony wasn't lost on me. In exposing the forgotten, I was saving myself. One evening, as snow began to fall thick over the river, I heard a knock at the studio door. When I opened it, Maria, my former assistant, stood there, bundled in a red scarf, eyes glistening. "Mr. Cole," she said softly, "I wasn't sure you'd want to see me." "Of course I do," I replied. "Come in. You're freezing." She stepped inside, looked around the modest space and smiled. "It feels like the old days, before everything got big." We talked for hours, about the betrayal, the silence, the lessons. She told me staff morale at Cole and Reiner had collapsed. Employees were leaving weekly. Liam had fired the creative team after a scandal with a major client. Rachel barely came into the office. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Everyone thinks you're gone. But the people who mattered, we knew you'd rise again." Before leaving, she placed a small wrapped box on my desk. "A Christmas gift," she said. Inside was my old company nameplate, Ethan Cole, founder. She'd rescued it before the rebranding. I stared at it for a long time, my throat tightening. For the first time since that fateful Christmas Eve, tears came easily. Not of pain, of release. Every revenge requires a climax, but mine would be quiet, poetic. No fireworks, no scandal. Just the truth revealed at the right moment. Liam and Rachel had announced their holiday gala of gratitude, a high society fundraiser on Christmas Eve, televised, attended by clients and investors. Perfect stage. Perfect symmetry. Through David Tran and a few discreet allies, ArcLight was invited as a partner brand. Liam didn't know I was behind it. He thought ArcLight was just another rising agency. My plan wasn't to humiliate, it was to liberate. To free myself, finally, from the ghosts of December past. December 23rd. Exactly 1 year since the betrayal. The city shimmered under snow and Christmas lights. Every corner glowed with warmth, carolers, skating rinks, families lugging trees through the cold. I walked among them, invisible, part of the crowd. I stopped outside the office building that once bore my name. Through the glass, I saw new decorations, gold ribbons, marble floors, employees laughing near the elevator. And then I saw her. Rachel. She stood by the window, staring out, unaware of me below. For a second, our worlds overlapped, her trapped behind glass, me free in the street. And I realized something profound. I didn't need her apology. I didn't even need acknowledgement. Peace didn't depend on her remorse. It depended on my release. I whispered a simple prayer under my breath. Let tomorrow be the day I let go. I arrived early at ArcLight. My team was decorating the small office, tinsel draped over monitors, paper snowflakes taped to windows. Someone played "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas" softly through a tinny speaker. Maria handed me a mug of cocoa. "So, tonight's the big night," she said. "Yeah," I smiled faintly. "But not the kind they're expecting." She studied me, sensing something deeper. "You're not going there for revenge, are you?" I shook my head. "No. I'm going to end a story. Not write another war." Snow began falling thick again, heavy flakes that swallowed sound. Limousines lined the entrance to the Langston Hotel ballroom, their headlights cutting through the storm. Inside, chandeliers glowed against crimson drapes. A 20-foot tree shimmered in gold and white, perfect, hollow, immaculate. Liam and Rachel moved through the crowd like royalty. She wore silver, he wore arrogance. When ArcLight's delegation was introduced, I stepped forward last. Gasps rippled through the room like a cold wind. "Ethan?" Rachel whispered, color draining from her face. Liam's smile faltered. "You have no right." "I have every right," I said calmly. "This event celebrates gratitude, doesn't it? So let me express mine." I walked to the podium as cameras flashed. I wasn't angry. I was steady, centered. The man who'd lost everything last Christmas had come home, not for vengeance, for peace. The ballroom pulsed with light, the kind of golden glow that photographs well but feels empty when you stand beneath it. Hundreds of guests filled the hall, their laughter echoing against crystal chandeliers. Christmas music played faintly behind the chatter, joyful, ironic, too bright for the truth about to unfold. I stepped up to the podium, feeling the warmth of the stage lights on my face. Rachel stood frozen near the tree, her eyes wide. Liam hovered beside her, jaw tight, scanning the crowd like a man searching for an exit. A hush fell. "Good evening," I began. The microphone carried my voice through the hall like a calm tide after a storm. "Some of you know me. Many of you don't. My name is Ethan Cole. I founded this company 15 years ago with nothing but a second-hand laptop and a belief that creativity could be honest." Murmurs rippled through the guests. Cameras turned, phones lifted. "Last Christmas," I continued, "that belief was tested. I lost everything, my company, my home, my marriage. The people I trusted most took what I built and called it progress. But sometimes—" I paused, letting the silence breathe. "Sometimes losing everything is how you finally see what was real." Rachel's hand trembled. Liam's face flushed crimson. I could have stopped there. I could have destroyed them, named names, told details, fed the crowd the scandal it wanted. But standing beneath that enormous Christmas tree, something shifted inside me. The ornaments shimmered like captured stars. The air smelled of pine and perfume. And I remembered the church pew from a year ago, the whisper that had saved me, "Don't let them take your soul." So I exhaled, smiled faintly, and said, "I didn't come here tonight for revenge. I came to say thank you." The crowd stirred, confused. Because betrayal taught me something success never could, that peace doesn't live in power or profit. It lives in forgiveness. It lives in letting go. I turned to Rachel. "I forgive you." Her lips parted, disbelief, then tears. I turned to Liam. "And you too. You taught me that what's built on deceit will collapse under its own weight." He swallowed hard, looking down. For once he had nothing to say. The room went quiet, not out of shock but reverence. Somewhere in the back, someone started clapping. Then another. Soon the sound spread through the hall like rain, soft at first, then swelling into thunder. Rachel wept openly, mascara running down her cheeks. Liam stared at the floor, the applause pounding against him like truth he couldn't escape. When it finally faded, I stepped away from the podium. "Arclight Media will be donating tonight's sponsorship funds to St. Matthew's Shelter," I added. "Because this season not everyone has a home to return to." The audience erupted again, not for me but for the message. And in that moment I felt it, freedom. Not the triumphant kind you shout about, but the quiet kind that hums beneath your ribs like grace. I walked out of the ballroom alone. Snow was falling hard now, thick flakes swirling under the streetlights. The city glowed, 1,000 windows flickering like candles. Behind me I could still hear the music, muffled, distant. Ahead the streets were empty, waiting. Rachel's voice called after me. "Ethan." I turned. She stood in the doorway, wrapped in a silver shawl, her breath clouding the air. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, tears freezing on her lashes. "I thought I was choosing a better future. But it was just empty." "I know," I said quietly. "And I wanted to hate you for it. But hate only keeps you trapped where you fell." She stepped closer. "Can you ever forgive me?" I smiled, not with my lips but with the kind of peace that lives deep inside. "I already did," I said. "Tonight wasn't for you. It was for me." She nodded slowly, a sob breaking through her composure. "Merry Christmas, Ethan." "Merry Christmas, Rachel." And with that, she turned back toward the light and I walked into the snow. As I reached the street corner, my phone buzzed. A text from David Tran. "The whole city just saw what integrity looks like. Let's talk after Christmas. Arclight's about to go big." I chuckled softly, sliding the phone back into my pocket. Funny how, when you stop chasing success, it finds you anyway. The bells tolled again just like the year before. I pushed open the church doors, shaking snow from my coat. The same pew waited in the back. The same flicker of candlelight. But everything inside me had changed. The choir sang "O Holy Night." I knelt, not out of ritual but gratitude. I whispered a prayer, not for vengeance, not for Rachel or Liam, but for every soul still standing in their own winter, not knowing spring is already on its way. Because that's what Christmas really is. Not perfection, not peace on a postcard, it's rebirth after ruin. It's forgiveness after fire. It's a heart learning to beat again after being broken. When I stepped outside, dawn was breaking. The snow had stopped. The sky glowed faint pink over the lake, like the world itself was exhaling. I walked down Michigan Avenue, passing shop windows filled with toys and ribbons, until I reached the shelter. Inside, volunteers served breakfast, coffee, eggs, pancakes for people whose names no one bothered to learn. I rolled up my sleeves and joined them. A woman with a scar across her cheek smiled at me. "You new here?" "First Christmas," I said. "Won't be my last." She laughed softly. "Good. We need more of you." As we served plates, I looked around at the faces, strangers, survivors, fighters. and for the first time in years I felt home. Later that morning I stood outside the shelter watching the city wake. Children tugged sleds across the snow. Shop owners unlocked doors. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang 12 times. I thought of Rachel, of Liam, of all the broken versions of myself scattered behind me. I whispered to the wind, "Thank you for every loss that led me here." A flake of snow landed on my glove, glistening before melting. A perfect moment, gone too soon, yet beautiful because it existed. I smiled. I wasn't the man who'd been betrayed anymore. I was the man who'd survived it, and forgiven it. And in that forgiveness, I found everything I'd truly been searching for. 1 year later, Christmas morning dawned clear over Chicago. The kind of morning that looks like forgiveness itself, sunlight spilling over rooftops, the lake glittering like melted gold. The city was quiet, wrapped in a hush that felt sacred. Inside a small apartment overlooking the river, Ethan Cole stood by the window with a mug of coffee and a heart finally at ease. The world outside sparkled. Children's laughter floated up from the streets below, the kind of laughter that doesn't know about betrayal or rebuilding or loss, only joy. On the wall behind him hung a framed quote, handwritten by one of his new interns. "Arclight, illuminate what others overlook." He smiled at it every morning. It wasn't just a slogan anymore. It was the story of his life. In the 12 months since that Christmas Eve, Arclight Media had quietly become one of the most respected boutique agencies in the Midwest. They didn't chase awards or headlines, they just told honest stories. Ethan had turned down several interviews, including one from the same network that once praised Liam and Rachel. He preferred his peace over their attention. Clients came not for his name but for his sincerity. He'd become something rarer than successful. He'd become content. And when he walked through his office now, decorated in modest strings of lights and paper snowflakes, he didn't see ambition. He saw gratitude. One afternoon in early December, a letter arrived at the office, hand-addressed, familiar handwriting. "Ethan," it began. "This time last year I was standing in a place built on lies. I've since left Cole and Reiner. Liam sold his shares and moved to California. The company folded in March." She wrote about the fallout, the investors' outrage, the client's departure, the empty offices echoing with their mistakes. Then softer lines. "I've started teaching design at a community college. It's humble but honest. You were right, peace was never in power. And finally, thank you for forgiving me when I didn't deserve it. I hope this Christmas brings you everything good you once gave to others." He'd read it once, then placed it in a drawer, not out of pain but closure. Sometimes silence is the most graceful reply. That same week, Maria insisted he attend the shelter's Christmas brunch again, a tradition now. He agreed, bringing along boxes of winter coats and care packages his staff had assembled. As he arrived, laughter burst through the doorway, volunteers he'd come to know, faces weathered but bright. Among them was Emily, a social worker in her early 40s with kind eyes and an easy laugh. They'd met months ago during a joint campaign to raise donations for single parents. She spotted him instantly. "Mr. Cole," she teased. "You're late, the pancakes are burning." "Then it's just like last year," he smiled. They worked side by side all morning, serving meals, pouring coffee, wrapping small gifts. At one point, Emily looked at him and said, "You know, you've done more good here than most people do in a lifetime of business." He chuckled. "Maybe losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me." She tilted her head. "Then maybe it wasn't losing, just clearing space." He met her gaze, warmth flickering like candlelight. For a long moment, the noise around them faded, replaced by something wordless and gentle, a kind of peace that felt like possibility. That evening he invited Emily and a few volunteers to his apartment for dinner. They crowded around a mismatched table, laughing over simple food, roasted chicken, wine, pie that collapsed in the middle. Outside, the city lights shimmered, reflecting off the river like 1,000 tiny miracles. When the dishes were cleared, someone suggested a toast. Maria raised her glass first. "To new beginnings," she said. "To second chances," Emily added, smiling at Ethan. He lifted his glass last. "To forgiveness, the hardest thing I ever learned and the only thing that ever set me free." The clinking of glasses echoed softly, and for a moment the world felt still, as if even time paused to listen. Later that night, Ethan walked Emily home through the snow-covered streets. They stopped at the corner near St. Matthew's Cathedral, the bells ringing midnight mass once again. The same steps where he'd once stood alone in despair now felt like holy ground. He looked up at the steeple, exhaled, and said, "A year ago I came here broken. Tonight, I think I finally understand what the season means. Emily smiled. What does it mean? That peace isn't the absence of pain, it's the acceptance of it. And love isn't found, it's rebuilt piece by piece. Snowflakes drifted between them, soft and luminous. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she reached out and took his hand, quiet, natural, certain. They walked on, leaving two sets of footprints that wound together beneath the streetlights. A year ago, I lost everything I thought defined me. But Christmas taught me that what's taken from us can never match what's waiting beyond the loss. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's freedom. And sometimes the light we're searching for only appears after the darkest winter. He paused, glancing at Emily as they turned the corner. Her laughter echoed softly through the night. Somewhere, a choir sang faintly from the church, "O come, all ye faithful." Ethan smiled, whispering, "Merry Christmas, Chicago." The camera would pull back here. Wide shot, snow falling, two silhouettes walking away beneath glowing street lamps. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like, share, and comment below. Tell us what forgiveness means to you. And don't forget to subscribe. Help us reach 5,000 subscribers so we can keep sharing stories that remind the world. No matter how dark it gets, there's always light waiting to return.